The MCU is getting magical with Doctor Strange next month, but how will his reality-bending antics fit in with all the Avengers adventures we've seen so far? Find out on Nerdist News. Last night, Kevin Feige and Scott Derrickson hosted a special IMAX 3D preview of next month's Doctor Strange, and it finally answered some of our biggest questions about the MCU version of the Sorcerer Supreme, namely when his origin story fits into the MCU timeline, how his mystic world will affect the cinematic universe going forward, and just how much LSD we should drop before seeing the flick in order to really get the visuals. Just me? Inappropriate?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get fired, am I? Cool.
Maybe.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, here's a recap of what we saw. We meet cocky surgeon Stephen Strange as he complains to former Flame Christine Palmer that he could never work in the ER because of their cheap equipment and lousy pay. Clearly, this is a guy who's in medicine for the cash and prestige, and he's totally lost track of why he wanted to help people in the first place. We see him acting like a rock star in the operating room, partying it up at a fancy gala, and finally getting into a terrible car wreck as he makes the unwise decision to examine some medical records on a tablet while he drives through a winding, rain-slicked road. Now let's pause there for a second because this little scene actually spelled out a long-time question we've had about Doctor Strange. See, the reason the good doctor is checking out lab results while driving is because some sort of medical agent is sending him potential patients he can treat next. One is an older person with a terminal illness, one a patient with schizophrenia who's been struck by lightning. This may be an Easter egg, and if you've got any guesses as to who this could be, we'd love to hear it. And finally, a 35-year-old Marine colonel who crushed his lower spine in some kind of experimental armor. Now your first thought might be War Machine and his big Civil War injury, but no, 35 is much too young for Don Cheadle's Rhodey. Instead, we're guessing this is one of the Marines who tested out Justin Hammer's ill-fated Iron Man knockoffs before the second-rate baddie finally settled on drones during Iron Man 2. So this little detail more or less confirms what we've been guessing. Stephen Strange's injury will line up with Phase 1, with his sorcery training stretching throughout the timeline of the MCU. This would allow him to catch up to the current happenings of Phase 3 so that he can jump right into the Avengers fun in time for the Infinity War. Now it's possible that he'll only train as far as the events of Captain America the Winter Soldier, since that one Hydra agent name-checked Strange as a superpowered person S.H.I.E.L.D. had been keeping their eyes on. But it's just as likely they were aware of his training with the Ancient One around that time anyhow. So there you go, our guess is confirmed. Doctor Strange will take place over the entire MCU, which also explains why he didn't help out during either Avengers flicks, something Wong even referenced in the footage, telling Strange that the Avengers protect the world from physical threats while sorcerers protect it from mystical ones. Now the footage went on to explore in greater detail how Strange's desperation to fix his injured hands and regain his former glory leads him to the Ancient One, who seems to be known for alternative medicine. Strange immediately disbelieves her and tries to bail, but she forces his astral form out of his physical self and leads him on a truly insane, visually stunning, trippy as hell journey through the multiverse. That is right, the multiverse. Kevin Feige mentioned at the screening that the flick wouldn't just continue to set the stage for Infinity War, but several of the future phases of the MCU. And while it's too early to know precisely what that means, we're guessing that the multiverse has a lot to do with it. I mean, this literally opens the doors to infinite possibilities and infinite threats as we see Strange float through the dark dimension, the mirror dimension, and more. Could this open the door to alternate versions of our favorite characters, or even folks like Miles Morales or the Marvel Zombies? Could it even open the door to connecting the MCU with Fox's X-Men universe? The possibilities seem totally limitless now. Now, as for the rest of the footage shown last night, it was mostly action-centric, with some phenomenal scenes that showcased how different the battles in Doctor Strange will be from other Marvel flicks. Namely, the sorcerer duels look like kung fu fights blended with the hard-hitting magic of Harry Potter. I know, you can't help but giggle. It's like the most ridiculous sentence ever. The gravity-twisting physics of Inception, and surprisingly, a lot of Indiana Jonesy whip stuff. Magical whips actually seem to be the Sorcerer Supreme's primary weapon, and it looks pretty sweet, so we're not complaining. In fact, it all looked rad as the 3D was actually used pretty damn well for once, and in a welcome surprise, it was revealed that over an hour of the film was formatted for IMAX, meaning the action would expand to fill the screen to its fullest potential, which should be pretty mind-blowing since, and I cannot stress this enough, everything in the astral plane looked trippy as f***. In fact, there's literally a scene where tiny hands grow out of Doctor Strange's fingers, which then grow their own tiny hands and eventually wrap the Sorcerer Supreme in a smothering blanket of infinite tiny hands. And then he falls through an eyeball. Steve Ditko would be proud. So yeah, overall, Overall, Doctor Strange is looking pretty great, and it seems to be a hugely important piece to the MCU puzzle that'll span everything we've seen before and forecast everything we'll be seeing over the next few phases. But what do you guys think? Are you psyched that Marvel's taking on a whole multiverse? Do you think the cinematic universe is getting too big to sustain its own weight? Let's discuss. Make sure you head on over to Nerdist.com/Twitch, where we'll chat more Doctor Strange, and we'll be getting into some Mars talks with our old pal Kyle Hill, so join us in the chat. Bowser's got a weird little Halloween sketch he did for Tiki Oasis that you don't want to miss, cause it's Bowser, and it's weird. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to keep getting all your Nerdist news. Ah, it's so weird. He's so weird.